Today, we're going to discuss one of the welfare problem in poultry, which is stress in particular, and how that is interacting with both the immunity and environmental factors, and what can producers and researchers do to try to manipulate and improve the situation. So in regards to stress, it comes from two major factors, the environmental factors and the factors coming from the poultry individual cells. For environmental factors, things can include flocking densities, lighting, noise, handling, heat, etc. For the factors coming from the poultry themselves, things such as reproductive stress or disease can all increase stress. Now, either way, once the stress is increased, the immune system will be dampened, and as a result, the chance of getting diseases will go up. This will not only jeopardize the health of poultry themselves, causing even more stress, but also it will jeopardize the human health as well. Because for a lot of disease the poultry get, for example, avian influenza, can severely jeopardize the human population health. Now, how that works is that in animals, or mammals and birds in particular, they all have a HPA axis, or hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, and that is the stress regulator of the body. Now, once stress is sensed or triggered, a series of chemicals will be released. For example, the hypothalamus will secrete a hormone called CRH, or cortical release hormone, and then anterior pituitary will get triggered into releasing ACTH, and then ACTH will in turn trigger the release of a lot of chemicals, for example, glucocorticoid or noradrenaline. Now, obviously, that helps with the animal's fight or flight response, but it also, if this response is triggered, the immune system will be dampened because the body deems that this system is temporarily unnecessary. Either running away, hide, or just simply freezing the spot is more important than defending some potential future disease, which is why when an animal is stressed, typically see the higher chances of getting disease. Now for birds, for poultry, the stress-induced immunosuppression has been proven to be affecting the effectability of the avian influenza virus vaccine. Because vaccine need your adaptive immunity, or in particular adaptive humoral immunity, to work, birds or chickens in particular, as I will show you later, humoral adaptive immunity is definitely affected by stress the most. And this disease is especially devastating for the producers because its ability of affecting human health. So if one bird got sick, they might have to get rid of many more birds, even the entire flock of the bird, just to ensure that this virus doesn't survive. Other evidence is also shown that this immunosuppression also increases susceptibility to Newcastle disease and E. coli. Both will cause great loss for the producers. So the goal of this presentation is to go over some environmental factors that has been proven to either reduce stress or immunity or both. Now, my stakeholders for this presentation are the producers of poultry who wants to give their birds a healthier life, and the producers whose birds got sick too often. And this presentation is also for research, as there's a lot of blank area left for research to be done, so there's plenty of space for development. Now, my expected outcome for the producers are, I hope that we'll be able to implement some simple low-cost changes, and that will both increase the bird's welfare and decrease the occurrence of diseases happening in the flock. Now, for researchers, I hope that they will be inspired by this research, and then they could explore these things further, because there's plenty of area that's left to be done. Now, in this presentation, I'll go over 3 environmental factors that could influence poultry stress. So the first environmental factor is housing. So far, only 2 housing systems was reviewed systematically, one of them being conventional caging system and the other being enriched cages. Well, compared to enriched cages, of course, conventional cages are cheaper, but however, given the higher stocking densities these birds experience, they do have less room to exercise, resulting in a lower bone quality when you compare their bones with the birds from enriched cages. Another thing is that ammonia, which is a type of waste in birds, has a higher concentration in conventional cages. And studies have shown if the concentration of ammonia is too high, birds' health will be implemented, and there's multiple organ lesions that's been associated with ammonia. One good thing, well, sort of, for the birds in conventional cages, that they do have lower aggression, and that is probably due to higher stress they are experiencing. One other thing you should note about poultry research is that researchers typically use HL ratio, or neutrophil to lymphocyte ratio, to measure stress instead of glucocorticoid. And that really tells you how closely associated stress are with immunity in birds. So one of the hypotheses for the highest stress experience in conventional cages for birds is that it's terrible hygiene in conventional cages because they're stocked up together, which means there's more bacteria, more fungi, there's more chances of birds getting infected because heterophil is one of the number of innate immunity they will respond first. Hence why you'll see this increase in HL when you compare that with enriched cage birds. Well, compared with the birds in conventional cages, the birds in enriched cages thus has a healthier immune system. And that is particularly true when you talk about humoral response. Humoral response is mainly composed of B cells, also a member of the adaptive immunity. They are the ones that's fighting actual diseases. And humoral response is particularly related with vaccines, meaning that if you're a producer and if you want to implement a vaccine program, it works better with the birds in enriched cages than with conventional cages. So light has been well documented to be influencing birds' productive ability. However, recent research have all shown that it also impacts the immune system as well. So light's factors are divided into three parts: the light intensity, the color of the light, and how long the lights were given, or in other words, photoperiod. So it was well known if you gave the bird 23 or 24-hour lights, you would get the maximized production rate. However, in a long-term wise, you'll see a reduction in performance, activities, and health, and a lower adaptive immunity, meaning that it is more likely for them to get sick. Hence why, since 2007, European Union required their producers to give their birds at least 6 to 8 hours of darkness. Now, studies on them do show they do have a healthier adaptive immunity, and then these birds does react better with the vaccine. Color of light can also influence birds' immunity. In particular, blue, UV, or green light can all help increase birds' immunity when you compare that with red and white light. In particular, if your birds are younger birds instead of older, green will actually work better than blue. In regards to light intensity, well, of course, higher light intensity will result in higher production rate. But if you lower the light intensities, you could lower the stress of the bird. However, this result is inconclusive because there are other research that shows otherwise, so further investigation is needed. Waste factors are another environmental factor that could affect poultry health, stress, and immunity. It was shown that the higher concentration of ammonia and hydrogen sulfide can damage both the innate and adaptive immunity in bird. In particular, if the bird inhaled too much ammonia, lesions on both lungs and spleen was observed, and they are more susceptible to diseases like Newcastle disease and E. coli. And if the concentration of hydrogen sulfide is too high, the bird can just die from inhaling their own waste. Of course, study on immunity, stress, environmental factor has been a rather new area. There's still a lot of inconclusive results because there are just too many factors are interplaying, especially when you're considering the immunity. There are just too many immune cell type, and they all need to be looked at in a more detailed way. And of course, more research can be done on light intensity and photoperiod. But for now, with all the research data that we've gained, there are some ways that producers can do to boost their flock's health. One of them being change their light color from the traditional white into blue or UV light. Another cheap thing they can do is that they can try to clean up the cage more often or switch their caging system into an enriched caging system. Both will help decrease the waste concentration. Not only that, but they also will provide a healthier and more pleasurable working environment for the handlers themselves. One additional thing that they can also do is to try to give the birds more darkness. The more darkness the bird receives, for example, 6 hours will suffice. And these are the references I used. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Please contact me if there is any question. Hope you have a wonderful winter break.